All right, we're going to learn about Europe and the colonization of America. We have been studying the different reasons why Europeans came to America. So let's look at exactly what we have to know. In standard 8H1, it says evaluate the impact of European exploration and settlement on the American Indians of Georgia. So we talked about the Cherokee, the Creek, and so those are the American Indians that we are specifically going to be talking about when we get there. Explain reasons for European exploration and the settlement of North America, with emphasis on the interests of the Spanish and the British, and then evaluate the impact of Spanish contact on American Indians, including the explorations of Hernando de Soto and the establishment of Spanish missions along the barrier islands. And so that is what we're going to briefly discuss today. When we look at important timeline dates, we know 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He made the first voyage to what is considered the New World. Spaniard Hernando de Soto began exploring Georgia in 1540. America was used on the first time on a map in 1538. By 1565, Spain will found St. Augustine in Florida. And by 1607, Jamestown, Virginia was established. And by 1663, England will claim what became Georgia. By 1732, Georgia Charter was signed by King George II that gave Oglethorpe and the colonists the agreement to sail to Georgia. 55 days later, they arrived February 12, 1733 in Georgia, and we'll talk more about these dates. I've shared this PowerPoint with you. Remember, everything that is underlined is the most important thing that you need to know. So when we begin with the age of exploration, we look at the Silk Road. It says the Europeans traded with Asians along the Silk Road. So think of on the map, let's think of exploring and going from Europe all the way to what is India and to China. So this was the Silk Road that Europeans and Asians used to travel back and forth in exchange of their goods. So what did they trade? Dyes, silk, perfumes, gold, spices, nutmeg, things like that. So to make money, you really wanted to be the middleman, the trader who buys goods from producers and sells them to other traders and consumers. So a new route. Why were they needing a new route? Well, it took so long to get there. Shipbuilding became very important in Europe during this time. And so what is the main reason, or the three main reasons behind exploration? Just remember the 3 G's: God, gold, and glory. European countries wanted those items to help grow their country's economy. A faster route to India was desired. So when Columbus first sets foot in what will be the Bahamas, he calls the people Indians because he thought that he was in India. So when we think of Spain, we think of Christopher Columbus and his exploration of the New World. By the 1500s, the Spanish had established numerous settlements from Georgia and Florida. Spain had 3 main interests in the New World: God, gold, and glory again. When we look at this map, we see that there are a slew of things that has been used throughout the world for us to look at this map that shows all of the exploration. And you can see the Spanish, Portuguese, French, the Dutch, and the British, and where they colonized. So during this time, the predominant religion in Europe was Christianity. European rulers wanted to spread the religion to other parts of the world. One of Spain's top priorities with exploration was to convert non-Christians to become Christians. The Spanish considered the American Indians in the New World to be uncivilized and they wanted to teach the natives the Christian faith and convert them to Catholicism. Many of Europe's exploration were for economic reasons. The Europeans knew that they could make a lot of money as traders if they could get Asian goods for a cheaper price. Sounds like a lot like China does today. So during this time period, Europeans believed that a country's glory was based on the size of its empire. So this is the glory. European nations raced to gain new lands in order to be the greatest empire in the world. All right, what I'm going to do is I want you to get out your sketchbook, and in your sketchbook, I want you to write at the top, why explore? And so I want you to list the 3 reasons why the Europeans wanted to explore. And so what I did for mine is I wrote down God, and then I wrote just the symbol that I'm going to use, that I'm going to illustrate today, is just the cross. So that represents Christianity. Then for gold, I just have little golden nuggets that I drew with my yellow color pencil. And then for glory, I have a flag. And so I just have the French flag drawn. And so you can look up the flag, or you can just draw one really quick. And so, again, why explore? God, gold, and glory. All right. So let's talk about Great Britain. Great Britain planned to settle and occupy the new land in order to cement its claim on the area. The nation's interests in the New World included the glory, the mercantilism, opportunity, God, so kind of the same concepts. We see at one point in history that France controlled most of this part of North America. The British were in the blue, and Spain is in the yellow. Portugal is down here in Brazil. Like other European countries, Great Britain was in competition to establish and have the largest empire in the world. Great Britain saw how much Spain was benefiting from its conquest in the New World, and of course did not want to miss out. So going back to Columbus, he believed that the shortest way to Asia was westward. In 1492, he led a Spanish fleet to find a quicker way to India. So he landed in the Bahamas. To his death, Columbus thought he discovered a westward route to the Far East's riches. So he thought that he landed in the Pacific Ocean, okay, and that he was in that part of Asia. So let's talk about Hernando de Soto. Hernando de Soto was a Spanish explorer. The theme of gold and spices was true for Spain as well. Hernando de Soto left Havana, Cuba, and landed in Florida and traveled into Georgia to find gold. So when we look at his route, this will let me click. Not what I'm wanting. So he's going to kill thousands of American Indians. De Soto died along the Mississippi River, and many other explorers would follow in his path. So I'll click on it here. So we can see that he is going to leave Havana, Cuba, and he's going to arrive near Tampa. He's going to come up into Florida. Then he's going to come up Georgia, go to South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, back to Georgia, into Alabama. He's going to go all the way up here and then back down until he goes to Texas. Okay, he's actually going to die here along the Mississippi River in Mississippi. And so Hernando de Soto was a very influential person, and he was the very first European to actually explore the interior of Georgia, and that's why he is so important. Some of the colonies were begun by refugees from religious persecution, while others were primarily settled for economic gain and a fresh new start. So many people that were in prison for tax purposes wanted to come to Georgia. So why were people in prison? People were in prison because they could not pay their taxes. So let's watch one of my main favorite things. So you see, Robin Hood was about the people, him freeing the people who could not pay their taxes. A lot of those people wanted to come to Georgia. That really didn't happen the way that people think that it did or that it should have, but that was one of the main reasons for economic gain and to have a fresh start. Mercantilism, an important goal, was to make Great Britain self-sufficient. To do that, the monarchy needed to create a favorable balance of trade by exporting more goods than it imported. So if you export more than you import, you're going to make money. So, colonies were sources of raw materials and food such as sugar, timber, rice, tobacco, and cotton. Then we have the slave trade that began. Europeans began going to Africa to capture slaves and bring them to the New World for manual labor. We'll get in depth with this later. But the triangular slave trade from Europe to Africa to the New World, and then goods that were made in the New World were sent back to Great Britain. And then we have the Columbian Exchange. We talked about the horses, about how there were not horses in the New World. The exchange of goods between Europe and the New World is where we see this. Before the time period, we'll give it 1500, there were no citrus fruits, grapes, bananas, sugar cane, bees, livestock, cattle, sheep, pigs, horses, peaches, coffee, olives, onions. None of that existed in North America or South America. But in Europe, sweet potatoes, peppers, squash, pumpkins, turkeys, tobacco, pineapple, cocoa, beans, vanilla, corn, tomatoes, potatoes, and peanuts did not exist in Europe or Asia or Africa. So only in North and South America did those things exist. So this is called the Columbian Exchange. What I want you to do is I want you to go back in your notes, and I want you, in your notes that I shared with you, so if you open this and you go to File and you make a copy, once you make a copy, I want you to go back and I want you to go, let's start on slide 5. And I want you to add your own notes to every slide. From slide 5 to slide 24. I want you to go back and I want you to make one little note about the most important thing that you learned. So in this one, I put middlemen made the money in trading. That's the most important thing that I learned for that slide. Slide 6. 3 G's. God, gold, and glory. Do that for all of the slides.